In this presentation, we will be discussing how a geographer at the University of Exeter does research, and how this research generates contemporary geographical knowledge. The geographer that we have interviewed is Dr. Lizzie Hobson. Lizzie is a human geographer who specialises in cultural geographies. She completed her PhD in July 2022 and now spends 20% of her time researching, while the rest teaching. This presentation covers how Lizzie does research, illustrating her somewhat unconventional but explorational approach. We display how this is manifested using some current examples of projects that Lizzie is researching on. Furthermore, we will discuss the type of geographical knowledge that autoethnographic research produces, showcasing the benefits and challenges associated with it.
Lizzie defines herself as a cultural geographer. This means throughout her research, ethics are very important. Her research methods are not concerned about bias or a hypothesis. This results in the outcome of her research providing no quantitative data. She outlines this method as a type of grounded research, where you don't go in with a set of questions, but with a general idea of something going on and seeing what emerges through having conversations. When forming the answers to her research, Lizzie writes up afterwards in vignettes, which are displayed as tiny fractions of conversations. She also likes to include photos, poetry, and sketching, with images usually taking up more than the writing, as well as sections for the reader themselves to write into the narrative. Whilst writing up her research, Lizzie takes some time to reflect upon her feelings and how this has troubled her. This means that she never takes herself out of her research. Lizzie's current research project is in the village of Brixham. It focuses on how the closure of the coal mine subsequently created a toxic atmosphere of masculinity and austerity. Her field research mainly consists of going to pubs and chatting to the local people. She ends up spending a lot of time with her participants and begins to care for them. This then puts her in a position where it's hard to disentangle herself from the research. Lizzie talks about how it is hard to write about people which you care about, as you don't know how they are going to feel in the future. This means it becomes difficult to balance what you decide to include in your work. You must act on the side of caution about telling participants' stories, and Lizzie sometimes feels this makes her work unsatisfactory. Lizzie records these stories in a field journal, which helps to position her as a learner too, not as a gatekeeper of knowledge. Lizzie's research is not tied too much to the verbal, but is more focused on the emotions created. This ties in well with the ideas of autoethnography.
Autoethnography is a form of research that is increasingly being used in the humanities and social sciences. According to Reid Danahy, it is defined as a form of self-narrative that places itself within a social context. It is a way for researchers to scrutinize and publicize their own self-understandings to further shape other people's understandings of a topic through their own experience. The reason I am introducing autoethnography as a research method to you is that the reading that Dr. Lizzie Hobson set is an article presenting a conversation between a student and a researcher that introduces autoethnography to the student. The researcher and author is Caroline Ellis. In this article, Caroline is explaining to the student how she should perform her qualitative research on breast cancer through the autoethnography, and how essential it is for her to open up and be vulnerable if she wants a vulnerable response from the readers. This means that being vulnerable in her writing and writing about her own emotions about going through breast cancer as part of autoethnography gives the reader the most vivid and personal representation of what it is like to go through what she did. This is the benefit of using autoethnography as a research technique, even if it does bring up painful memories and past trauma like it does with the student in this article.
Lizzie uses autoethnography by utilising many of its research techniques. She conducts her fieldwork interviews in a conversational and informal manner. This enables her to form relationships with her study participants, leading to more emotive and personal findings from her research. When conducting interviews, she doesn't have a set list of questions. This allows her to be much more explorational in her research. She described the benefits of this as being able to see what emerges from her interviews. She can therefore let the process of the interviews determine her final research question. Lizzie pays attention to her own emotions when conducting her research. The use of emotion also enables the research to bring self-reflection for Lizzie. She engages with her own experience of the fieldwork while writing up her research, as she aims to write herself into the narrative, not out. She often writes notes from memory, as well as writing them up from recordings of conversations. Through using autoethnography, Lizzie aims to create something that will cause the readers to feel emotion. She also invites the reader to acknowledge how they react emotionally to the subject matter. This makes their own emotional reaction part of the reading experience. Autoethnography allows Lizzie to present her research using many different forms of media. Previously, Lizzie has used video and visual performance to display her research, as well as images and scrapbooking techniques. The use of all of these techniques allow her to focus less on biases. This means that the research is much less constrained, and she argues that there is no such thing as valid when researching.
Autoethnography adds subjectivity to the production of contemporary geographical knowledges. This allows the field to broaden and include deeper understandings of the lived experiences of people and communities. For example, in Chen's autoethnography, the researcher becomes the subject of investigation, reflecting on their own experiences as a migrant researcher. This allows for an introspective analysis of the mobility, positionality, and agency within the context of geographic research. By centering the researcher's own lived experiences, autoethnography sheds light on the embodied knowledge that shapes our understanding of geographic research. Autoethnography emphasises self-awareness in the production of contemporary geographic knowledge. Chen's critical self-reflection enables a deeper understanding of how identity and positionality influences research processes and outcomes. This enriches the research by uncovering biases and ethical considerations that may impact the interpretation of data and the construction of knowledge. Autoethnography highlights the importance of context in research. Chen's account illustrates how the researcher's mobility as a migrant shapes their perception and engagement with spaces they study. This contextual understanding is crucial for developing contextually relevant analysis of geography, as it acknowledges the diverse landscapes that influence human experiences. Autoethnography foregrounds the voices and perspectives of marginalised groups. Chen's autoethnography amplifies the voices of migrant researchers, providing insights into their challenges and contributions to geographic scholarship. By centering these voices, autoethnography facilitates a more inclusive and diverse understanding of geographic knowledge production. Autoethnography adds invaluable insights to the production of contemporary geographic knowledge by incorporating personal experiences and perspectives, enriching our understanding of spatial dynamics, human-environment interactions, and socio-cultural landscapes, contributing to a more holistic approach to geographic research. Using autoethnography as a method of research adds a layer of ethics to contemporary geographical knowledge, making the findings and results more genuine, as the researcher has to think about the answers they have collected and make sure that nothing confidential is exposed within their work. Confidentiality is a big part of the disclosure in autoethnography. In order for the researcher to connect with their subjects, there has to be a level of trust, and that comes from disclosing confidentiality at the beginning of the process. In Sarah Marie Hall's work, Ethics of Ethnography with Families, A Geographical Perspective, she has to ask the families that she was interviewing to sign a form which stated that whatever they said, they should expect confidentiality over. Throughout her research, Hall kept reassuring her families that everything was confidential, which helped create the trusting relationship that she required. There is more to the ethical considerations of autoethnography than just confidentiality. Protection over participants is also vital. There is a duty to protect the participants themselves during and after the autoethnography is complete, as Hall says. There is also a duty to protect background characters, or associates, as Hee-Won Chang discusses in his book Autoethnography as a Method, because these people may not directly be involved in the process, but their findings may relate to them, and that if their identities are revealed accidentally, then it could cause issues. Ethical considerations must always be taken into account when doing autoethnography, and this adds a personal aspect to the results, and results can be trusted as there has to be a trust and respect between autoethnographer and participant. If there was no relationship between the two parties, then the results cannot be as genuine, and ethical considerations are what builds those relationships.
In conclusion, Lizzie does research using an autoethnographic approach, ethically exploring emotions and reflecting on her own journey. This method produces personal qualitative geographical knowledge that involves both her as a researcher and her participants. Thank you for listening.